Shut up, compressor. Hey everyone, Matt here with Duke's Models, and welcome to the Fony Bash. Alright, it's time for episode 2 of the Fony Bash with the Tamiya F-51 Mustang. Now this thing is tracking a little bit behind the Edward kit, but that's because it got started later and I had a little bit of work to do on the inside and around the windscreen and whatnot to kind of get shit up and running in the first place. But we're getting to the point where it's almost time to close the fuselage. So before I do that, I kind of want to walk through where things are. So on the underside, now earlier Mustangs had more of an arrangement where the gear bay was bare metal and yellow zinc chromate. But I know on later blocks, things kind of went to shit in terms of consistency, and interior green was a thing that happened. And considering that the gear bay on the Tamiya kit is not the end-all be-all of gear bays, and it's on the bottom of a plane that I'm kind of building a little bit quickly, I figured, what the fuck, I'll just go ahead and do interior green, keep it nice and simple. On the inside here, let's remove some extraneous stuff. On the inside here, the Aries cockpit is coming along quite swimmingly. It fits pretty well after I ground away a whole shitload of the sidewalls of the kit and got everything installed. And I have started on the weathering a little tiny bit with, as you can see up in here, the splotches of interior green kind of chip stabbed, etc., into the sidewalls. Now, F-51s had their cockpits painted black, but they were pretty much World War II surplus stock that would have originally had interior green cockpits. And so they got overpainted with black, but then obviously they were hard used and put away wet and all kinds of shit. And so the existing examples of unrestored or lightly restored cockpits show all kinds of chipping down to the interior green on the sidewalls. And I basically went and recreated that. And it's probably all going to vanish once this all gets officially closed up and all the other shit gets put in here. But it adds a little bit of flavor to an otherwise pretty dull black cockpit. I've also added some stencil decals and some placards and a little bit of detail painting courtesy of pretty much Vallejo. You'll also notice the floorboard wear there. So P-51s had plywood floors and they had a mixture of black paint and sand, so literal sand, not just the color sand, applied to the floorboards to act as essentially a non-skid surface and protect the plywood. And over time, those things got worn away by pilots' feet, as they were operating the pedals and had their feet on the floor and things like that, climbing in and out of the cockpit. And so I was kind of lazy and didn't really want to go about dealing with chipping or any of that kind of business. And what I did instead is I just basically sprayed down some beige and then sprayed the black tightly around it and got a little bit over, kind of colored over the lines just a little bit to give that sort of dirty, worn feeling. Let's go ahead and rip this apart so you can see it better here. I mean, I wouldn't do this in 1/32 scale, but I think in 1/48, and with the weathering that's going to go down on top of this, that's pretty sufficient. Now we've got a few other elements of the cockpit to look at. Let's zoom on in. So we've got an ultracast seat, which has the belts molded in, and the backrest and all that kind of stuff. And it's pretty much ready for weathering. Painting was nice and easy. It's a little bit shinier than I would like at the moment, but it needs a good acrylic wash to sort of tone things down and bring out some shadow detail. It needs a flat coat, all that kind of good stuff, and then it can be installed. We've also got the bulkhead, which the seat will mount to. Again, you can see the interior green sort of chipping along the shoulder areas, and the headrest here is actually painted in MRP Figure Acrylics black leather, which I think is a wonderful color. It has a sort of a red-brown, very, very nuanced sheen to it that sets it just a little bit apart from everything else around it, and it's just lovely. Next, we have the control stick, which, again, examples of these in non-restored references show chipping all along the column here, down to not just interior green, but also bare metal, so I've got a little bit of that going on, which probably won't show up at all once this thing is installed. Then we've got the instrument panel sans the actual instrument panel itself. Come on, focus. Everything here is looking pretty good. It's got some gauges installed. It's got some details painted. The gun sight is kind of coming along here, so things are working. It needs basically some weathering. Probably going to do a black acrylic wash in here to really bring out the details, because this is not black. I believe it's MRP tire rubber. So a little bit of shadow detail and then a little bit of dry brushing, which has its place in cockpits like this, because these are all on references black and they're just going to vanish. So I need something to pop up the highlights a little tiny bit, and dry brushing should do that trick just perfectly. So we're looking good on that front. And we've also got the instrument panel itself. Again, here you can really see the difference between the gray that these things are painted with and the black on the instruments themselves. These are printed on acetate, which is super nice. It's got that little glass-like glare, and I need to clean my fingerprints off of. And this will sit behind the instrument panel, which will sandwich onto this. So everything's coming along. Next up, as I said, my plan is to get in here with an acrylic wash, the so-called magic wash, and basically get some shadow detail going in here, and then come in and heavily weather it for, dust and operational crud, essentially. Because these things, when they served in Korea, were not babied at all. So definitely want to have a nice dirty cockpit and provide some interest beyond just, hey, everything in there is black. So that's basically where the Tamiya F-51 stands, and where I'm going to wrap up this episode of the Fony Bash. I believe the next one will be when I have everything all weathered up and we're ready to close everything up, and then the joys of closing it up and making sure the width is correct to fit this windscreen on it. So thanks for tuning in. Stand by for the next one to be coming out, and check you later.